Hi, Mari. This is Rebecca, and I'm going to critique your assignment 2 presentation. So let's get into it. These are good looking mind maps. Great job there. Good looking logo sketches. All these thumbnails look fantastic. Be sure to try to get them uploaded for the check-ins, because then I can give you feedback then. But so this is your mood board, and I do like what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of 70s stuff in here, though. That's the only thing, since you're doing 80s new age, new wave. I just want to bring your attention that like this is pretty 70s. This is fairly 70s. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. But everything else looks good, and I can see this consistent color palette along the way. The color palette itself is actually feeling very 60s to me. And I think it's because of the brown and the mustard kind of colors in here. So yeah, well, I'll talk more about that when we get to the standard sheet. Let me come back to Jesse. So I'm a little bit confused by the personas because they seem to be modern day people. Because like it says he's a fan of LinkedIn and YouTube, and she's, a fan of all these brands here. I mean, Pepsi was a brand back then, but Apple wasn't yet, and obviously Instagram and Spotify didn't exist. Um, so I think what you're trying to do is have somebody, a current musician, make a band that is like an homage to the 80s. So if that's what you're trying to do, then you're on the right track. Okay. Um, and then I really love these logos. They turned out really nice. This one over here is fantastic, and I think it should be your prominent logo. Uh, but I want you to look at your kerning in here. So like this R and E, and like it's just this stuff is pretty tight here, but then we get some large gaps with the O and then between the N and the O. So I think it's just getting lost in this part, the ono of the title. So if you can tighten up the O closer to the R, the N closer to that O, the O closer to that N, and then the M closer to that O, I think that it'll be more similar to how close these are together and how close these are together. And then same thing over on this side. This part in the middle here, the O and O, is also not quite as tight as these ones. So these are all more spread out than the version on the left, but I can see there's more, at least it's giving the like an optical illusion that there's more space here and like in here. So just, just fudge it a little bit, like nudge it over and just see if you can make it look a little more consistent. So like I like the spacing between in these three here is good, but it looks like this R could nudge to the left a tiny bit. There's a larger gap here that needs to be closed. These gaps might be okay. Oops, sorry about that. These gaps might be okay. I got to see them once they're moved over a little bit. And then this gap looks a little, these two gaps on the either side of the eye looks a little bit too big. So that's all for that. But I love this concept a lot. It's really fantastic. And I love how that turned out. So great work on that logo. And then here's your standard sheet. So I do like this phosphate font. It's really nice. Um, and I think that if you use it in combination with what's going on up here, make this very large and make this smaller, not an equal size, because then they compete with each other. So for example, if you were to make your album title with the phosphate font, I would make that much smaller than maybe 60 to 50 to 60% smaller than the band name in this font. Okay. And then that's if you decide you want to combine the two together. Okay. So over here, this color palette. So things were like, I'm trying to just think of some examples. There's this one Genesis album from the 80s that had a lot of this color, and it was really nice. And I could see these colors with it as well. So those four are totally working and can pass as 80s. But these two right here are just shifting the whole color palette back into 60s. So I recommend maybe using, see down here in this diagram, in your little texture thing, we have this light blue. So maybe something in that direction, as well as this color here. That might be what you have there. I would say maybe something more gray than the brown, or another orange. Okay, so you can just mess with it and see what you like. If you want to, you could just take different lighter tints of each of these colors, and that would totally work as well. Okay, so yeah, like I absolutely love this color palette. I have it in my house. I love it. Don't get me wrong, like it's a gorgeous color palette. I just want it to feel a little more 80s than 60s. Okay. And I love these textures and the geometric shapes that you have down here. The grain texture is really pretty. Looks really good. And then I like the name of the album and the names of the songs. I just want you to shuffle the names of the songs a bit, like you have Saturday Night and TJIF a bit close together. So I recommend just dropping TGIF a little further down the list. And then right here you have Dance All Day and Funky Days a little close together. So drop Funky Days to the bottom of the list, and then it'll be a little more mixed up there. But other than that, I like these band photo inspiration, and I think that overall it's going to be really successful. So thank you. Good job.